The twin suns of Eltherion were just beginning to dip below the shimmering horizon when Ryvan Maddox guided his weathered freighter toward the radiant spires of Syrian Prime. A smuggler by trade, Ryvan had slipped through blockades, outwitted bounty hunters, and negotiated ceasefires with cannibalistic raiders, but none of that compared to walking hand in hand with a 7-year-old child who claimed she was the lost heir to the most powerful empire in this quadrant. "Are you absolutely sure this is the place?" he asked for the third time, his eyes locked on the crystalline skyline that looked less like architecture and more like someone had sculpted a sunrise from living light. Leora's grip tightened around his fingers. Her skin glowed softly, an inner radiance that pulsed with rising excitement. "The Light City," she said, barely above a whisper. It was the most she had spoken since he'd found her in the shattered ruins of a refugee compound on Veltrax 9. Ryvan hoped she was right. The moment their ship crossed into Aurelian space, they'd been flanked by sleek fighters. He'd half expected to be atomized on sight, but instead, they'd been escorted with precision to the planet's capital. It suggested that someone important knew who Leora was, and cared. That could be a miracle. Or a trap. The voice crackled over comms, harsh and impersonal. "Unregistered vessel, you are instructed to dock at Terminal 9. Deviate, and you will be terminated." Ryvan didn't argue. "Copy. Terminal 9. He piloted the freighter as directed, eyes darting to Leora, whose glow subtly brightened the closer they came. Once docked, security teams descended like a wave of efficiency. They weren't just checking for contraband, they were scanning Ryvan and Leora on a molecular level. DNA sequences, psychological profiling, even emotional resonance matching. "What's the purpose of your visit?" demanded the lead officer, a towering figure with shifting silver-blue skin patterns that pulsed with authority. "Humanitarian mission," Ryvan replied, technically not lying. "Returning a lost child to her people." The officer turned to Leora. "Your name, child?" "Leora," she said. Then, she spoke in something else. A melodic, chiming language that made the guards freeze in unison. Ryvan shifted uneasily. What did she just say? The officer swallowed hard. "She said she is Princess Leora of the Celestine line, daughter of Empress Kalaith. And she wishes to see her mother now." The words hit Ryvan like a kinetic pulse. Princess. The princess. The one who had been presumed dead in a terrorist attack nearly a decade ago, no survivors. And yet here she was, clinging to his hand with a child's trust. "I'm not dead," she said firmly, her luminescence flickering like firelight. "I got lost. But I'm home now." From that moment, everything changed. Instead of being detained, or worse, Ryvan and Leora were swept into a full royal escort. Soldiers in ceremonial armor flanked their path as if accompanying foreign dignitaries. Word spread fast. Citizens gathered in hushed clusters, their radiant skin echoing disbelief and something deeper, hope. "This is insane," Ryvan muttered under his breath as their vehicle glided toward the heart of the city. "I'm actually delivering a lost alien princess to her empress mother, who probably commands fleets that could incinerate entire moons." "She doesn't vaporize people," Leora said with matter-of-fact clarity. "She uses reformation chambers. Much more efficient." That was somehow less comforting. The palace made every capital Ryvan had seen feel like a mining outpost. Walls shimmered like frozen waterfalls. Corridors shifted organically, as if grown rather than built. Everything pulsed with the same bioluminescent energy that illuminated the city, alive, aware, impossibly advanced. Each checkpoint became more intense. Security measures that could probably dissect thoughts scanned Ryvan with increasing scrutiny. And then, a voice, "Her Majesty is prepared to receive you. Now." Now. Ryvan blinked. "Shouldn't I, freshen up. Learn how to bow. Figure out which fork doesn't start a war. When the Empress summons you, said the escort flatly, etiquette adapts. Then the throne chamber opened, and even Riven, who had seen the core of a supernova from a broken hull, gasped. The room was carved from a single titanic crystal, catching every fleck of light and multiplying it until the air itself shimmered. Nobles stood in reverent silence. Their glowing robes shifted like rippling stardust. And at the center, upon a raised dais of impossible clarity, sat Empress Kalaith. She didn't look like any monarch Riven had ever seen. Tall, composed, terrifyingly beautiful. Her skin was a cascade of flowing silver and blue, dancing with ancestral patterns that signified bloodlines going back millennia. And her gaze, when it fell on Leora, was a fusion of disbelief, longing, and unspeakable pain. Leora, the Empress whispered, the acoustics carrying her voice like wine through a canyon. The child let go of Riven's hand without hesitation and ran with the certainty of someone who had never once stopped believing this moment would come. Mother. Kalaith rose from her throne and met her daughter halfway, collapsing to her knees as she caught Leora in arms that trembled with years of restrained grief. The chamber didn't erupt in noise. It fell into deeper silence, as if even sound itself was watching. She's mine, the Empress breathed, holding Leora close. She's really mine. And Riven stood, awkward and forgotten in the radiant majesty of it all, realizing that whatever his life had been before. Smuggling spice, running from patrols, bluffing his way through checkpoints, it was about to change forever.
Then someone fainted. Loudly. Riven glanced over to see a noble in elaborately glowing robes slump sideways in what he could only describe as dramatic disbelief. At least some things were universal. Perhaps, came a cautious voice from nearby, perhaps a genetic confirmation would be prudent. Kalaith turned her head slightly. Are you suggesting I cannot recognize my own daughter? No, your radiance, the elder noble stammered, backpedaling like a man trying not to be erased from existence. Merely, protocol. The Empress looked at Riven for the first time. You, she said softly, as the weight of 1,000 years settled into the space between them. What is your name? Riven Maddox, he said, unable to stop himself from standing straighter. I just found her in a refugee camp. Just Riven, she repeated, eyes narrowing. You crossed hostile space, dodged pirates, and trusted the word of a lost child. That's not just. That's extraordinary. Riven scratched his neck. She asked me to take her to the Light City. I didn't know what it meant. You brought her home, Kalaith said. That means more than you can possibly understand. And though Riven didn't yet realize it, this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter not just for a broken empire, but for the smuggler who had become its unexpected hero. The palace glided forward around them like a living dream, flowing corridors of crystal and humming light guiding them toward destinations unknown. Riven moved through the surreal space with a strange detachment, like a man who had accidentally wandered onto the stage of an epic opera and couldn't find the exit. Behind him, flanked by a security escort that radiated enough disciplined menace to make warlords nervous, Empress Kalaith walked with her daughter in her arms. Your Majesty, said a protocol officer as they reached yet another ornate security gate. Shall we prepare the verification chamber for? There will be no tests, Kalaith said coolly. She is mine. Riven glanced back just in time to see the man bow so deeply he almost vanished into the floor. They emerged into a chamber that still pulsed with regal grandeur, but it felt warmer. The ceiling arched high, draped in glowing flora that resembled hanging galaxies. Panels of bioluminescent crystal adapted to emotional states, and currently glowed with soft amber tones, the color of reunion. A table was set in the center with dishes Riven had never seen before. Kalaith lowered Leora gently into a seat and began slicing her food with the grace of someone who remembered what it meant to be a mother. Tell me, she said softly, about the camp. It was busy, Leora said, calmly accepting the meal. Everyone had jobs. I watched for bad ships. Helped the littlest ones. Sometimes I'd keep them quiet so we wouldn't get caught. Bad ships? Kaylaith's voice was calm, but her skin shimmered in icy blues. The ones that took people away, Leora replied matter-of-factly. Slavers. Or worse. I was good at hiding. Riven watched the Empress's jaw tighten, her radiant aura cooling into dangerous hues. He glanced at the emotional light panels, now dimming toward storm-colored swirls. Slavers in a refugee camp, she said quietly. And the Aurelian Defense Accord? The Galactic Protection Guild? They protect whoever pays, Riven said. The camps don't have leverage. Or credits. Kaylaith's fork landed gently on the plate with a sound like a decision being made. That ends now. Leora interrupted without a hint of fear. Mother, can I have dessert now? Riven promised me real sweets when we got to the Light City. Kaylaith blinked, then smiled for the first time in a way that wasn't carved by diplomacy. What kind? The ones that taste like starlight. I remember them. Crystallized nectar cakes, the Empress said, her voice caught halfway between grief and joy. Your favorite when you were 4. I'm 11 now, Leora corrected. But I still like them. A pause. Kaylaith's expression wavered, visibly processing those lost years. Leora, Riven said carefully. Do you remember how you got separated? The child's glow dimmed slightly. She looked to her mother, her expression older than any child should wear. There was fire. An explosion. People screaming. A guard grabbed me, she had the silver markings. She told me to be quiet. She said the bad ones were coming. Then she put me in a pod. She went back to help the others, Kaylaith finished, her voice tight with grief. Captain Vela. She disobeyed orders to protect you. The pod must have malfunctioned, Riven added. Instead of returning to Aurelian space, it veered into the outer reach. But I wasn't alone, Leora said. Other kids helped me. Some adults, too. And Riven. She beamed at him. He brought me home. Kaylaith studied him again. Why were you there? Unofficial delivery, Riven said. Medical supplies. Some of the big aid routes were getting hijacked or tangled in bureaucracy. So people like me stepped in. Smugglers, she asked, no judgment in her voice. Smugglers with hearts, Riven said. We figured it was better to break rules than let kids die. Kaylaith's aura warmed again. A philosophy I find increasingly admirable. Then a voice interrupted from the chamber entrance, Your Majesty. A guard bowed. Lord Commander Liss requests your presence. Immediate security concerns. Concerns? She asked, standing. Noble houses are shifting political alliances. Some believe the throne heir was gone. Her return complicates their futures. Kaylaith's glow hardened into deep silver threads. Of course it does. Riven stood. What kind of complications are we talking about? The kind that usually involve assassination attempts, the Empress said with unnerving calm. She turned to Leora. You'll stay here, guarded. Riven. You're now under royal protection.
And if I try? Then you'll be under mobile royal protection. She smiled slightly. Even when being sarcastic, your life matters to me. Riven sighed. You know, I just wanted to drop off a kid and disappear. You dropped off a princess and revealed a conspiracy, Kaylaith replied. There's no disappearing from that. Leora, still eating calmly, added, Don't worry, Riven. They're not very good at assassinating. Riven sat again, rubbing his forehead. Of course not. Why would they be? That would make things easy. Outside, the palace began shifting into lockdown mode. Shimmering shields activated silently, casting protective light across every surface. Inside, the smuggler who had once run from everything now found himself in the center of a dynasty teetering on the edge of war, and with a child at his side who trusted him more than an empire. He looked at her. "You doing okay?" She nodded. "Better than okay. I'm home. And you're here. And despite everything." The armed guards, the looming conspiracies, the Empress with eyes like twin stars, Riven felt something shift inside himself. It wasn't fear. It was purpose. The assassination attempt came at dawn. Riven was jolted awake by the muffled thump of concussive charges, close, but not close enough to breach the reinforced palace walls. The moment his boots hit the floor, the room's comm system activated. "Sir," came a crisp voice. "This is Captain Nyratley, Royal Guard. Please remain inside while we neutralize the threat." "How bad is the threat?" Riven called back, already pulling on the tailored garments the palace had provided, still finer than anything he'd ever worn, and about to get singed. "The sort involving explosives, armed insurgents, and nobles with very poor judgment," she answered. "Also, Princess Leora is in your quarters. Her Highness placed her under your protection." Riven blinked. "She's what?" "I'm right here," said a calm voice. He turned. Leora sat on his bed, legs crossed, completely alert and dressed in royal silks. In her hands, she cradled a guard's sidearm with disturbing familiarity. "Where in the stars did you get that?" Riven demanded. "Took it from the guy trying to kidnap me," Leora said, as if discussing weather. "He was surprised I fought back. Rookie mistake." Riven followed her gaze to a slumped body near the door. Unconscious, still breathing, barely. "You stunned him." "I'm not allowed to kill people unless Mother says it's okay," she said brightly. "Palace rules." "Palace rules," Riven repeated, trying to make peace with the fact that a child had better reflexes than most mercenaries he'd worked with. At that moment, Empress Kalaith arrived. She swept into the room in what could only be described as battle regalia, sleek combat armor infused with woven crystal threading. It somehow made her look more regal than any of her ceremonial gowns. "Your Majesty," Riven said, stepping aside. "I'm guessing the security situation is under control."
"Resolved," Kalaith said, coolly. Her radiant aura now shimmered in silver streaks that pulsed like lightning. 13 would-be assassins dead. 4 surrendered. 2 still being interrogated. Leora gave a tiny approving nod. "Did you ask them about the old attack?" Kalaith turned toward her, and her expression softened. "Yes, my heart. One of them confessed. Lord Varos Thane. The guy with the shiny beard?" Leora asked. Kalaith exhaled. "Yes. He coordinated the sabotage on the royal transport 7 years ago. He intended to kill the entire royal line. But my pod escaped," Leora said quietly. "That wasn't part of his plan." "No," the Empress said. "Captain Vela launched you early. Saved your life." "I want to visit her memorial," Leora said. "She gave me 7 years I wasn't supposed to have." "We'll go tomorrow," Kalaith promised. Then she turned to Riven, her gaze narrowing with imperial intensity. "Which brings me to you." "Oh," Riven muttered. "You helped expose a conspiracy that's haunted my empire for years," she said. "You returned my daughter. You've proven you can handle both politics and explosives. So, what do you want?" "I didn't do this for a reward." "Good," she said. "Because I'm not offering one. I'm offering a job." Riven blinked. "A what now?" "Special Advisor for Humanitarian Affairs," Kalaith said. Help us fix the systems that failed. Coordinate aid. Reform the camps. Find the children like Leora before they disappear. I'm not a politician, Riven said. I'm a smuggler, she offered. With field expertise, moral clarity, and a proven track record of getting things done while everyone else dithers. Riven hesitated. He glanced at Leora, who was watching them both with keen curiosity. You'd make it official, he asked. I already have. The council's been notified. You start when you say yes. Riven rubbed the back of his neck. And this comes with how much bureaucracy? Less than usual, Kalaith said, lips twitching in what might have been a smile. And more authority than you're likely comfortable with. I'm not going to fit in at those council meetings. You don't have to, she said. You'll be the one who tells them what actually matters. Leora chimed in helpfully, and you'd get to have dinner with us. Dinner? Riven repeated. The Empress's glow shifted. Warmer. Softer. Almost shy. Leora enjoys your company. And so do I. You have a way of simplifying the impossible. You're saying I make you smile, Riven said. Kalaith hesitated, just a moment, then nodded. Yes. And that is not a small thing. Riven grinned. Well. In that case, I'll take the job. But I have a condition. Name it. You keep smiling. Kalaith blinked, surprised. Then her bioluminescence shifted into a cascade of golden hues. Joy, undisguised. Done, she said. Leora cheered. Can I plan the welcome feast? Kalaith gave her daughter an affectionate look. Only if we also survive the fallout from this morning. Outside, the palace began pulsing with the quiet rhythm of stabilization. Inside, the smuggler who had once only cared about border runs and profit margins now found himself standing at the edge of something vast, policy, power, possibility. And a princess who trusted him with her life. And an empress who might just be falling for him. It was a lot. But as Riven looked from one to the other, he decided he could handle it. After all, some stories weren't about saving the galaxy. Some were just about bringing someone home. 6 months later, Riven Maddox stood at the center of the newly formed Celestine Humanitarian Affairs Directorate, reviewing reports with the kind of grim focus that used to be reserved for planning illegal jumps through border patrols. Behind him, sunlight filtered through the palace dome, refracted through a lattice of crystal and light into a kaleidoscope of shimmering color. Through the curved window, he could see the palace gardens, lush with bioluminescent flora. In one corner, Princess Leora knelt in the soil, surrounded by a group of refugee children, showing them how to plant crystal root seedlings that sang in the breeze. She was laughing. That laugh had become Riven's North Star. Report from Enclave 7, said his aide, a holographic interface flickering beside his desk. Reduced piracy in the local sector. Supply chains restored. No confirmed slaver activity in 5 weeks. That's the longest run we've had, Riven murmured. Get a medical resupply headed their way anyway. Preventative, not reactive. Yes, Minister. He still wasn't used to being called that. A chime. He turned, and there she was. Kalaith entered like she owned the stars, which, in fairness, she did. Her presence still made rooms pause. But today she was dressed simply, her silver-blue bioluminescence set to a warm, gentle rhythm. How are the protocols holding? She asked, settling across from him with practiced ease. Better than I expected, Riven replied. We've rerouted a third of the outer system traffic through protected lanes. Aid convoys are running with real consistency. The outposts are safer. But, she prompted. But some sectors are resisting the reforms, he said. There's still a belief that helping refugees is optional. Kalaith's expression cooled. It won't be for long. Not now that humanitarian protections are enshrined in Imperial Charter. He leaned back, studying her. You really did it. Changed the system. She corrected gently. I might rule the Empire, Riven, but you changed its conscience. He chuckled. You're getting good at flattery. I'm not finished, she said, and something in her glow shifted, nervous energy under the calm. Personal or professional, he asked, catching the tone immediately. Both. She reached into a side compartment and placed a small crystal box on his desk. Inside was a simple band, wrought of living crystal, pulsing with a soft internal light. The Council has ratified the formation of a permanent ministry, she said. Humanitarian affairs will be an official pillar of the Empire. With you at its helm. That's the professional part. Riven opened his mouth, but she raised a hand. And the personal, she continued, more softly. I'm asking you to stay. Fully. Permanently. Not just as my minister. But as my partner. Riven felt the world slow. You're asking me to marry you. I'm asking you, she said, her glow flickering with hope and vulnerability, to help me build an empire where children like Leora never have to survive alone again. To be my partner in every sense. Politically. Professionally. Personally. And yes, romantically. He stared at the ring, then at her. And Leora? She already calls you family, Kalaith said softly. She told me last night that she doesn't want a coronation. She wants a forever home. And that she hopes you'll stay because you're the one who made us a family again. Riven turned toward the window. Leora was now braiding crystal blossoms into the hair of a laughing child, her face full of joy that once seemed impossible. He swallowed hard. You know, he said, 6 months ago I was trying to outrun a bounty by pretending to be a spice vendor. I remember, Kalaith said with a smile. You were terrible at it. He looked back at her. You're serious? I've already begun commissioning the ceremony, she said. Apparently, blending Aurelian and human traditions is complex. And the flower girl is insisting on a 3-tier nectar cake. Riven laughed, warmth blooming in his chest. Kalaith, he said, reaching for her hand, warm, radiant, endlessly steady. I accept. The ministry. The partnership. The family. Even the cake. Her luminescence burst into golden fractals, echoing the joy in her eyes. Then, she whispered, our impossible journey has become something else entirely. Yeah, Riven said, standing and pulling her gently to her feet. A beginning. 6 months after bringing home a lost child, Riven Maddox found himself transformed from smuggler to minister, from fugitive to future consort of the Empress herself. But more than that, he found a cause. A purpose. A family. The story of Leora's return reshaped the Aurelian Empire. Humanitarian policy became more than a formality, it became law. Border worlds once forgotten were now protected. Refugee camps once ignored were now supplied, guarded, and thriving. And at the center of it all, a little girl who believed that home was more than a place, it was people. Leora never stopped reminding anyone who would listen that she found her way home because one man listened to her, believed her, and cared enough to act. Riven's transformation wasn't about glory or titles. It was about proving that small choices, a hand held in trust, a promise made in the dark, a smuggler who said yes when the galaxy said no, could ripple outward and change entire civilizations. So if you ever wonder whether one act of kindness matters, remember this story. Remember Leora. Remember Kalaith. And remember Riven Maddox, the man who thought he was running away, only to find that destiny was running toward him. Because in the vast expanse of stars, sometimes the most important journeys are the ones that bring families home. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more sci-fi tales with heart, and share it with someone who believes in the power of second chances.